Kit Guru is with MSI Components at CES 2024, as you can see by the branding behind me. This morning, MSI finally told us all about their Super 40 series graphics cards, which we knew were coming. And there's a lot of graphics cards, as we can see, with a quick look along this line of products. We're going to come back to those, because one of the most fascinating things I've seen is not quite an MSI product, is over here. LED crystal film screen. This is laid over the glass. Look at that. We're talking film that can be as thin as 1.5 millimeters, and in essence it's a display. In fact, there's a join here which you can't see. That is one piece of film, this is another piece of film. So this is like multi-monitor support. I think that's absolutely great. It's not an MSI product and they don't have an exclusive on it, but if it gets enough interest, they may well bring it out as a product. I like that. Hello, Lucky. Power supplies. So the ATX standard that supports PCI Express 5, already wobbly. We're now on to PCI Express 5.1. And that means that these cables have subtly changed, as have the connectors in the power supply. It's to do with the sense pins and how well the cables engage to make absolutely sure that you don't have a problem with a melting or burning graphics card. Melting connector rather than burning graphics card. So we're already upgrading the standard of power supplies. For a standard that's only just arrived, already gone. 1250 watts gold rated, 850 watts also gold rated. RGB graphics stands, not so interesting. These, however, new MAG core liquid coolers. Look at the pump bodies, look at the infinity screens. I like those. Also, the mounting hardware is different. These brackets support both AMD and Intel. You haven't got to switch them out for one or another. You can see there's no bracket clipping on to the pump body. All the gubbins is happening behind the scenes. Very neat. More LED crystal film screen, this time on the MSI MEG Maestro 700L PZ case. Took me 3 goes to get that right. Looks great. The case is expensive. We don't know how expensive, so the combination of this film on this case won't be cheap. But I do like it a lot, and you'll note the film is going around that radius without any difficulty. The fun thing is, when they change the pattern, it's controlled by an app, because this isn't an MSI product. Some of these pixels actually got killed in transit. Depending on the pattern, you can see them. Here, it looks perfect. RGB fans, the MPG EZ or EZ120 ARGB. So they're clipped together magnetically. We've seen that before. They have a control hub. We've seen that. The control hub understands what the devices are, and it sends the information to the Mystic Light software within the control center. That's all good. The way these fans clip together is very neat. We have these connectors. They've separated the fan control from the RGB control. By separating PWM from RGB, there's no legal problems. If you do it a different way, whoops, there's a lawsuit. 2 budget motherboards, B650M Gaming Plus Wi-Fi, X670E Gaming Plus Wi-Fi. Not a lot to say here, except they've had the aesthetic makeover, and they do look rather smart. We'll have a quick run down the line of professional products. This is an external screen. We've seen similar products before. In fact, I own an Asus version of this myself. They've refined the external screen concept by adding, for example, a USB cable that goes straight out the back instead of looping around. If you've ever tried connecting an external screen to your laptop, you'll know the cables can be a real pain. This is a prototype, a tiny little QB61M, a fraction of a litre in size, the latest Raptor Lake U processor, 15 watts. This is non-functional, it's empty. We've seen Apple ditch the Mac Mini original, and we've seen Intel ditch the original NUC. So this is continuing a form factor that we've actually seen a great many times over the years. Displays for professional people, and then we come to a professional workstation. And humorously, this is in the same family of professional workstations. This substantial workstation and this tiny little workstation are actually brothers or sisters. As you can see on the motherboard, this is all about Project Zero. This has been a work in progress for some years. In essence, it's dead straightforward. You take the main power connector, you take the EPS connectors, you put them on the back of the motherboard, and that's why you can't see any cables inside the glass. However, there's rather more to it than that. This build is inside the MSI MAG PAN0100PZ case. Blimey, that's a lot. And the motherboard in this is designated as the Z790 Project Zero. The point here being is that these are not technically ATX form factor motherboards. There's something different because, of course, they need to be compatible at the very least with the case. The power supply, I think, would just connect. You need to be able to install the motherboard in the case, as we'll see here. If we look at this B760M Project Zero, on that side, we can see there's a bunch of missing components. We go around the back. Not only do we have the main power, and here the two EPS connectors, we also have fan headers and USB plus SATA. In other words, most of the connectors are on the back of the board. As you can see, if you put this board down indelicately on the flat surface as you're putting your system together, you may well bend pins. Put it down gently, don't break it. But the result, as you can see, is a much tidier layout. Like that a great deal. Moving along, as with the power supplies before, PCI Express 5.1. This is a power adapter. It's to take your power around 180 degrees. So I think we can agree MSI is looking to compete directly with Cable Mod. MSI Center software has gained an AI engine. I am unclear whether this is some presets that have been built in that are claiming to be AI or if it is true AI. This does not require a specific processor with an NPU in it. After all, that's not yet come to the desktop. It's a laptop technology. So there we are. AI has come to the desktop before the processors have even landed. Once again, we have a system built into the MEG Maestro 700LPZ. I do find those names something of a mouthful, but I think that looks absolutely superb. I love the radius on the glass, and if you swing around the front, you get a good look at what's going inside the system. And yet we have mesh on the side, and you can see there's side-mounted cooling. MSI has finally understood you cannot draw air through glass, and you need mesh for airflow. Main Gear Zero Drop. Main Gear is a US PC builder. The boss of Main Gear owns the patent on the Project Zero idea, or alternate approaches to the motherboard. And he's obviously come to an arrangement with MSI. This is clearly all working hand in hand. This, as you can see, is an MSI MAG PNA0 M100 case. However, as we move along, we can see we have a Corsair case that's Project Zero, and here we have a Fantex NV9 case, also Project Zero. I know for a fact that this case required a certain amount of modding to make it Project Zero compatible, but the point is other case manufacturers beyond MSI are definitely on board with Project Zero. MSI is working on a project with Capcom for Monster Hunter 20th anniversary, so we have a bunch of modded products that look really rather fun. I like the case, I like the graphics card, the controller's good, I really like that motherboard. Obviously it's a paint job, but that's fun. Similarly, laptop and liquid cooler, with apparently two fans working. Aegis RS3 gaming desktop. I remember when Aegis was a tiny small form factor PC. This, on the other hand, nothing of the sort. Up to Intel Core i9 14th gen and up to RTX 4070 Ti graphics, plus a substantial SSD that's Gen 5. This PC is built for airflow. MSI's got serious about cooling. As you can see my hand through the mesh in the side panel. Side intake, and there's also more mesh on that right hand side panel. Good to see. So we have the cosmetics of glass, mesh at the front, mesh at the side. How many huge monitors have we seen for gamers from MSI? This is a 34-incher QD OLED, 3440 by 1440 resolution, which would you believe is UWQHD. I've read it, so it must be true. 175 Hz refresh and OLED. It's OLED technology, HDR rating is 400, so that is just about proper HDR, but it's borderline. Slightly smaller 32-inch MPG 321 URX. This is a 4K monitor, 240 Hz refresh, and again OLED. This also HDR 400. That looks impressive and certainly a good candidate for your gaming monitor. Would you believe there is such a thing as a monitor with AI? As you can see here, health indicator spectrum bar. This bar here is indicating the health of your character in the game. Now at the moment this is pretty much a demo because it's only playing on the one game, but the idea that you can have this going on and also here you're being warned about your enemy who's out of sight, that's nifty. Essentially it's a built-in cheat that's actually in your monitor. Indeed, the game profile is stored in the monitor, not your PC or I suppose laptop. Definitely interesting to see. The monitor is a 32-inch MEG 321 URX. It's a 4K 240Hz OLED. But it's the AI feature that's the heart of the matter. We're at the super part of the booth, ho ho. This morning, Nvidia launched their Super series of 40s. We knew this was coming a long time ago, but they're finally here, it's all official. So for example, 4080 Super 16 gig, Gaming X Slim White. The hardware from the outside is dead familiar. It is of course all about the new chip, and of course it's going to be about pricing. At the very least we'd expect to see the conventional 4080s drop in price. Moving down the line, we have a slightly more prosaic 16 gig Ventus 3XOC that uses TorqueFan 4 rather than TorqueFan 5. And then we come to something that I absolutely love the look of. This is the RTX 4080 Super 16 gig Expert. In essence, this is a Founders Edition graphics card by MSI. Got a really funky looking cooler there. Fan on this side, which of course would be the bottom with the card installed conventionally, and a fan on the back. We've seen this from Nvidia. This is not a new idea, but seeing it from a company such as MSI, that's a really good move. And they claim it's cooler than the Nvidia Founders and also operates more quietly. We go down the line and we see RTX 4070 Super 12 gig, RTX 4070 Ti Super 16 gig. This is the graphics card I think we're all pinning our hopes on. And here we have the 4080 Super 16G Gaming X Slim, but in black rather than the white that we saw at the other end of the line. MSI just can't stop themselves. It's every GPU in every form factor. So 4070 Ti Super 16 gig Gaming X Slim White, and next to that the Ventus 3XOC. Then we have a baby 4070 Ti Super 16 gig Ventus 2X, just the two fans, much smaller form factor, but it still has the correct power connector. And you can get the same card in white. 4070 Ti Super 16 gig, and we finish up with a couple of 4070 Supers 12 gig. We asked MSI about the split of black to white graphics cards in the market. They were telling us Americans love white graphics cards. Apparently 20% of their sales are white against 80 in non-white, whereas over in Europe it's more like 90 to 10. So white graphics cards are definitely a thing, and happily we're going to continue seeing them. And now it's time for SSDs. We have Gen 4 and Gen 5 SSDs all powered by Phison. These are all in the market already, we know all about them. However, further along we have cooling. The problem with the M.2 form factor is you've got a very small area to get rid of about 25 watts of heat when you're using a Gen 5 SSD, and that is a problem. And the consequence is these coolers. We saw a load of Gen 5 SSD coolers at Computex, and here we have more. So this is an actively cooled M.2 SSD. The cooler obviously is substantially larger than the SSD itself. And at the end of the line, we have a development product. This is purely a prototype at the moment. It's described as a passive SSD, however, it clearly has a fan, and there we have it on the card. So basically, it's a miniature little cooling system for your SSD. We're also told M.2 is not going away anytime soon, so all the manufacturers are just going to have to work around the problems of heat density in M.2. Peripherals, loads of peripherals. The Strike Pro Wireless is a new keyboard with mechanical switches. Looks quite funky. I think Matt's going to enjoy getting his mitts on that one. It's both got clear caps and also uses aluminium. That's the kind of thing he likes. Further along, more mechanical keyboards, all good. And then we come to the Versa Pro Wireless 8K. You'll note they claim a true 8000 Hz polling rate. Once again, I'm going to put this in the hands of Matt at some point, and he can tell us whether or not this is correct. If it is, that sounds impressive. The charging stand and mouse have both got RGB. That's nifty. A clutch of clutch mice, and then we come to an Xbox controller. that can be dismantled by the user. And you'd hope reassembled by the user. Hurrah, we've done it. Very neat. We're finishing up with Wi-Fi 7. We saw some Wi-Fi 7 hardware at Acer, powered by Qualcomm. This hardware is also powered by Qualcomm. They've got 3 sets of similar looking routers here. Romi BE Lite Mesh, that's up to 5 gigabit per second. That's purely on the Wi-Fi, not on the Ethernet. Then we have the Romi BE Pro Mesh, that's up to 11 gigabits per second. And the BE Max Mesh, that's up to 21 gigabits per second. Huge differences in speed, and the thing is, the pricing is quite reasonable. We are told about $250, $350, $450 going up the stack. Interesting to see, that means that this Wi-Fi 6E router, which is obviously a completely different form factor to the new Wi-Fi 7s, is actually slightly faster than the base Wi-Fi 7. And then the new technology just takes off into the ether, delivering speeds that Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E can only dream about. Over here, we have a selection of satellites for the mesh network. We can see some software that's mapping your Wi-Fi coverage. If you need that many satellites, I think you've probably got a problem with your brick walls. We're signing off with MSI Components at CES 2024 next to this RTX 4080 Super 16G Expert. I love the look of that graphics card. I hope it performs as well as it promises, and I'm sure Dominic is looking forward to reviewing it just as soon as he possibly can. Head over to kitguru.net to read our CES coverage, and remember, we do vertical videos on TikTok as well.